I think if you want to be in the top 3% in any industry, you need to do one thing and one thing better than everybody else. I think you need to translate the best.
Welcome everyone to the Closing Table Podcast, real accounts from real estate professionals brought to you by WindowStill. I'm your host, Beth Cooler, and today I'm sitting down with Scott Bergmann. Scott is the broker and owner of Realty One Group, Authentic in Omaha, Nebraska, and today we sat down and talk about Scott's unique background in social work and how building trust is essential for successful client relationships. We also talk about AI in real estate and how agents can leverage these tools to better their real estate businesses. And also, we talk about the importance of simplifying complex real estate concepts for your clients and what it takes to be the best. So, without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Scott. Scott, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to start our conversation off with how you started in real estate.
Yeah, how I started in real estate. So, um, believe it or not, my background has nothing to do with sales. Before I got in real estate, I did social work. I spent 10 years in the social work industry. The first 5 was in child abuse and neglect, the frontline stuff. And then the second 5 was in leadership and social work. So to be honest, I didn't actually think I'd ever do real estate. But I did social work for 10 years. I was also in the military, the National Guard at the time, and I'd kind of hit a glass ceiling. And in that, went through a divorce at that time, and I picked up Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, read that, and it changed everything for me. So I left the government 9 to 5, jumped right into real estate, and took off from there. But I can wholeheartedly say I firmly believe that my work in social work helped me prepare for real estate more than anything else could have. So I still feel like I'm serving my purpose, sitting in people's living rooms, talking about their big picture goals, just helping them through the real estate journey as compared to any other areas of their life. So my background is, I feel, pretty different than most real estate professionals.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would agree, but I see how it just dovetails so beautifully, right? Because
Hmm.
so often in real estate, people are dealing with death, divorce. I feel like there's a
Yeah.
third D, but I can't remember what it is. But, kind of these big life events and your background, I'm sure, has given you such great tools
Hmm.
for shepherding people through these kind of emotional times in their lives.
Yeah. Absolutely. You're. I firmly believe, and I know there's been studies done on it, but I think one of the driving forces that bring human beings together, I firmly believe, is the mission to help others. And so what I learned in social work was I could help people in that arena. And if I keep that mindset and I can bring that to any industry, real estate, and now as a broker owner. And I feel like when you take a look at the producers, the top producers, you realize that they're really effective at helping others, helping their clients, helping the transactions go through, and they're often really strong at helping other agents be successful. So I do believe that if you lead with a mindset of helping others, that the world feels that. And if the world feels it, the world reaches back out to you more for help.
Oh, that is such a beautiful sentiment. So I'm curious because you have such this kind of deep background
Hmm.
in relationships, right?
Yeah.
I think that's like a great way to kind of couple it. I'm curious, you probably have a bit of a different like approach to your client relationship.
Mm.
So how do you know, how do you enter into these transactions with your
Yeah.
clients? How do you approach it and how do you build these lasting relationships?
Oh, those are good questions. I do have a different approach. The hard part is not everybody gets the experience and the background that I got when they transition into this career, because it's very rarely someone's first career, isn't it? It seems like it's someone's second or
Hmm.
third, just like mine. Um, I never lead with the house. I never lead with criteria, because any agent can do that. Honestly, when I go into listing appointments, for example, of course I'll do my homework and to get prepared. But when you think about it, the buying and selling of a home is the symptom of a bigger scenario. Always. It's a bigger life event. The quicker that I can get to understanding the life event that they're going through, the quicker I can understand what the motivating factor is and help them to it. And I think, more times than not, when I walk into a listing appointment, and you can't blame sellers, for example, their first step is they want to show you the house. And to which you want to be kind and oblige. I'll be honest with you. I usually stop them there. Hey, we'll take some time to look at the house. If you don't mind, can we go to the kitchen first? The kitchen is where people spend the most family time normally. It's where they connect. It's where they think about when you're walking clients through homes, and you can see the sparkle in his or her eye when they see the kitchen. What they're thinking about is entertaining their family and friends. So the kitchen has a significance in people's homes. And we go in the kitchen, and I'll ask a simple question. And it usually takes people by surprise. The question I'll ask is, why am I here? And they'll kind of stop and give me kind of a squinty-eyed look like, what do you mean? Why am I here? Why'd you call me? Well, we're thinking about selling our home. Okay, awesome. We snap our fingers, the home is sold. Why did we sell the home? Oh, well, my husband just got relocated to this job he's been working for, for 5 years, and we want to make this as smooth and easy as possible, and we got to sell the home to do that. So dig into the why. As a real estate professional, the how and what you should already know. The what is you have to help them buy or sell a home. The how is you're going to give 5-star service, because I've never met any agent or any professional that says they give any less than 5-star service. You gotta dig deep and early into the why. And when you do that, summarize back. Okay, so let me make sure I understand. So we're selling this home because you're relocating, and you want to make sure that the journey is simple, easy, and hands-off. Is that what I heard you say? And obviously, because I was listening, the answer is yes. And then what that gives me is the power to understand how I help it become simple, and how I help it become easy, and how I help it be hands-off. Honestly, I probably spend maybe 10 minutes talking about the house, and the other 50 minutes is talking about them, their family, what got them here, why they're doing this. Because when we get into times where the transaction gets difficult, because sometimes they are, you always go back to that why. Okay, let's say we hit the inspection, and the buyer is asking for a few things that my client doesn't agree with. You can always go back to that why. Hey, okay, just to make sure why we're here. The real goal is to get you relocated. And I can understand how this water heater and that furnace is a speed bump. But if we did make this decision to resolve these two scenarios, it would get us that much closer to relocating you. I just want to remind everybody what the goal is, and in case I forgot it or we forgot it, that we're all here for the same reason. And what I often hear people say with just the simple questions of why and the summarizing, the parroting back, if you will, is that at the end of the appointment, what I often hear that separates me from others is that they felt understood. They felt like they trusted me, because I asked the deeper questions, and we didn't get to the house to the tail end. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm saying that I think people want to know that you care about why they're there, and then they care about you selling the home. So, yeah, I think I answered your question.
Yeah, no, I think it was such a masterclass in a first conversation with a client. And what you really hit on for me is really it's all about how we want to feel, right? We want these things because they will make us feel a certain way. But especially when we're meeting someone for the first time, we don't want to lead with our feelings. We as human beings, I don't know, we have too much pride. We're too protective of our feelings, things like that. And so I think by you asking these questions, you're getting to the feeling, you're breaking down some walls, and, but in a kind way. You're not just asking them to kind of bare their soul on the first date, but you're getting more quickly to the thing that really matters.
Yeah. And I don't get me wrong. I think all agents need a presentation. I think they need to be prepared. I was just having a conversation with somebody about the pros and cons of an elevator speech. The pros of an elevator speech are, I know what I'm going to say for a minute. the cons is people have to listen to the first things out of my mouth about me, and then I'm done talking. I'm not disagreeing with being prepared or having an elevated speech or having a presentation. If you were to ask me what I truly believe clients want in their real estate journey with me, above all else, I would say it's the same thing that anybody wants in a relationship. I would say that they want trust. I think at the end of the day, I think the ability to build trust with human beings is the most powerful thing that you could have and the most powerful thing that you could ever lose. And I think that the quicker that we understand that in order to understand you and for you to trust me, I have to care about your goals and mine. I'm not going to say before mine because we can both win here. I have to care about your goals and mine. So when you ask the questions on, and it's a simple question, right? Like 4-year-olds do it. I got kids. They all go through the why phase and they ask why to everything. And we just kind of brush it off. But think about how much knowledge that you're giving them in that 15-minute conversation in which you truly try to engage and have the why conversation. Why is the sky blue? Well, why? Well, why? Well, why? Think about how far you got into just planets and how just by the simple question of why. How much further could you get in a conversation if your simple follow-up was why, to the point where they had nothing left to say? And then all you do is repeat it back to them. Okay, so just to make sure, we are looking to relocate. You mentioned that you got to be there in 4 months. It's okay if he goes there first and you stay back to do some moving. But his fear is that if you guys do have to relocate, he doesn't want you moving that much. And then you guys are in the middle of the school year and you want to kind of limit that. If you could possibly get it to after the end of the school year, that'd be great. I mean, like those are all okay. Why? Why do you mean? And it's intriguing to me. I do feel that no harm, no foul. Because we lead the presentation, people just lean into that and it feels like a sales pitch after that. But if we talk about them the entire time, it's never a sales pitch. It's just a conversation with friends and you understand those deeper goals. And what's cool about that is when I understand your mission, it becomes mine, or a piece of it becomes mine. And when I have a central mission, that's when I'm most powerful. And that's when I am most laser focused. So without the why, I challenge you to ask yourself why you're there. If you don't gain that information from the person in front of you, because yes, scenarios may be similar, but people aren't. So yeah, it's something you really can't teach. It's just, I don't know, just natural relationship building, I guess.
Totally. Scott, do you have any particularly memorable, times where you helped a client buy or sell a house, or like a particularly rewarding or even challenging transaction?
Oh, I have quite a few challenging ones. Rewarding. Okay, so I can think of some recently that have been pretty rewarding, and I think a lot of the sellers you see recently have been have-to sellers through divorce or estates, and those are very delicate scenarios, often delicate scenarios, and they involve a deeper understanding of what someone's going through. And so I was working with an estate, and there's 3 brothers involved, but the wife of one was doing the majority of the coordination. Great gal. But when I went into the house, I had some work to do. It wasn't crazy. But one of the brothers had lived there the entire time with the father who had passed away. And most of the stuff, he had an attachment to. So I think in that, truly taking some time and like having the group understand that it's not just getting stuff out of the house, it's therapeutic in nature, right? Like there's an attachment to the coffee cup over there and the picture on the wall. It's not just stuff and things that's in the way during showings. It's people's lives. And so we navigated all of it. We navigated to the point where we had to get junk removal at the tail end of the transaction, and all these places that could have been bumpy because they knew I understood them a little bit deeper, that I wasn't going to hurt them. At the end of it, they all took the time and left really, really great 5-star reviews. And those reviews had more details about me as a person than it did about the sale. So in times like that, when you can honestly say that you help people in a way that they wanted to be helped and they appreciated you for it, I think that's huge. I think, and one of my favorite speakers is Simon Sinek. I could listen to any of his content 10 times over. And he talks about the ability to influence. I think that's one superpower that all humans have, the ability to influence other people. And I think what people do with that influence dictates their legacy. So I think once you recognize that you have the ability to influence others, you got two choices: for your benefit or theirs. And the cool thing is when you lead with theirs, it benefits you too. And I believe that the world, when they see successful people achieve success through their benefit, the world gets really angry at that. But if the world sees you achieve success through benefiting others, the world enjoys that. So if you can find a way to balance that, I think that you could be. I think more people could be successful. I also think more people in the cancer culture that we are, more people would be able to keep success if they were to balance their ability to benefit others and themselves along in that journey. So, yeah, I've had quite a few transactions with ups and downs. I think what people want to know is you can look them in the eyes and say, "Hey, I'm my number one job is to protect you, and so for this reason, I don't think this house is for you, or for this reason, I think we should do this," and they're gonna trust you like they would a family member.
Oh, that's beautiful. Scott, what would you say would be your number one piece of advice for a first-time home buyer?
What would be my number one piece of advice for a first-time home buyer? Ooh. Affordability. I know all agents say they take the opportunity to say, find the right real estate agent, right? Smile at me. I don't think that's wrong. I affordability. When you're making that decision to buy your first home and your last home, the biggest fears are the financial affordability of that home. So if you're going to seek for something, seek an agent or a lender that understands affordability. Because if you've noticed just in the last 4 years alone, the one thing that completely changed the market was affordability. The first-time home buyers of 4 years ago are no different than the first-time home buyer. They have no bigger goals than the ones today. What changed is affordability. So I think for a first-time home buyer, pairing with an agent or a lender that truly understands the numbers and their affordability and can break down how much this house is going to cost at this price or that price, and understands that. I think first-time home buyers should be striving to get into homes and ensure they're affordable. So I would say have a deeper understanding of affordability and work with the people around you that understand affordability. And then everything else kind of just goes from there.
And then for sellers in this market, what would your advice be?
For sellers, trust your agent, not the Zestimate. I don't know. I would challenge every seller. To write down the number of the Zestimate the day before they list and the day after they list. I pinky promise, double pinkies here. I pinky promise you those numbers will be different. Why? Because it's an algorithm. That's all it is. And now, more than ever, I think sellers need to understand the power of that Zestimate and the power of the listing price. I think this is such a good question. I think sellers often mix up the listing price with the sales price. Those are not the same thing. Your listing price is your marketing price. Thanksgiving's coming up, right? I like Black Friday shopping. I hate shopping all year. I'm probably the reverse, but I like Black Friday shopping. Why? Because I show up to a couple of stores for 6 straight hours and I get 90% of my work done. That's efficient to me. And so when I'm looking at Black Friday deals, because everybody wants a deal, what's going to catch my eye is the ones on the front page. So if you're listing your home on what would be defined as the back page of the marketing calendar, they ain't gonna find you. Um, but if you list your home for marketing purposes in a competitive price point, which your agent should be able to advise you the difference between, competitive and non-competitive price points in your market, you're going to catch more attraction and often make more money because you're pricing for the market, you're pricing for marketing, you're pricing for the attraction. But a lot of sellers' biggest fear is, well, if I list $2,000 to $3,000 under my Zestimate, what is the world going to think of me? Like, the Zestimate is like, it's like high school, right? Like, what's the world going to think of me if I wear these new shirts or what? They don't remember. Like, they don't remember what your Zestimate is. They don't. At the end of the day, they're just wondering if their house looks better than yours. Like, it's hilarious to me. But I don't blame anybody. They don't want to look any different than anybody else. But I do want to make more money than my neighbor. So if it means that I list a little bit lower than my Zestimate price for marketing purposes because my agent advised me to do that, it's not a shot to my pride. It's a marketing strategy. And your sales price is what you close for. I highly believe that those two things are separate, and I don't think sellers take enough time, or maybe agents don't take enough time to separate the difference between the two.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up Zestimate because I don't know, it's almost like a joke, right? Because
Mhm.
the Zestimate doesn't go inside your house. It
Yeah.
doesn't know the condition of your air conditioning or your roof, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know these things. It doesn't know if there was water damage. It just knows square footage and acreage
Yeah.
and some comparable houses,
Yeah.
Uh, and like you said, it is an algorithm, so it's getting new information all the time and therefore changing all the time.
Yeah.
It's an unreliable narrator.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree 110%. Yeah.
So Scott, what would you say is one of the biggest lessons you've learned in real estate?
Ooh. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned in real estate would be you got to sleep, you got to eat, but you got to sleep too. I just had someone say that to me actually recently, and it was a perfect way to kind of sum up some of my internal beliefs. You have to eat, but you got to sleep too, which in my mind, you got to make the decisions when helping your clients that allow you to sleep at night, just as much as those decisions help you close a deal or put money in your paycheck. I think if agents lead with that, I also think that so like when I say social work, I often get like this, oh wow, people are just immediately drawn to what a selfless human being, which sounds great. I'm not going to say that it wasn't a selfless career. It was a very selfless career, but the world recognizes it as a selfless career. What they think real estate is a selfish career, and I hate that. That was probably the biggest difficulty in coming from one side of the arena to the other. Was I go from being loved by all but making peanuts to making money and people thinking that they couldn't trust me. Um, uh, I think, but what I realized in social work that has really helped me in real estate is um, I sleep better at night knowing selfishly that I helped people, and I only know that because I led my days selflessly. So one would argue that in order for me to be happy at the end of the night, to look myself in the mirror and say you helped other people, is the world understands it as selfless, but one would argue it's selfish because that's my goal. That's my mission. It's selfish of me to only be able to sleep at night because I help people make the right decision. But the world sees that as selfless. So if you lead with that, if you lead with the mindset of what is this going to help me sleep at night or put money in my pocket? It makes decisions a lot easier. No, don't get me wrong. We all got to make money here, but you you end up making more, in my opinion, when the money that you make is made with the right people. They tell more people about you. Um, so I think those are my two biggest pieces of advice. I know you got to eat, but you got to sleep too, and to be you can be selfish when you are selfless, because it's only your mirror at the end of the day. So those are probably my two lessons so far.
And yeah, you're using selfish in like the classical sense, right? Self-interested. Your self-interest
Yes. Yep. That's a great
is to
point.
do well by others so that you can do well by yourself. I do
Yep.
think the word selfish has been usurped to mean like self-indulgent or self-centered,
Yeah.
and I think that's just where as a culture we've gotten a little loose with our language. But I
Mm.
love using selfish in the definition that you and I are talking about, whereas we are doing the best by ourselves
Yeah.
by doing for others.
100. I agree 100% for
Yeah.
sure.
Scott, I'm curious what kinds of habits and routines you might have that help drive your success.
Oh, this is probably going to be an unconventional answer. There's probably 20 to 30% of my day that I would call habit or routine, because I've kind of gotten to the point. Well, so with opening Realty One Group Authentic here in Omaha, the identity shifted from real estate agent to broker owner, and I also have to produce too, so I do a little of both. One, my mornings are usually pretty routine, right? It's family, it's kids, sometimes the gym, sometimes not. Um, and I will say one habit or routine, I guess you would say, one tool around habits would be the CRM that I use. I use Follow Up Boss, and we have it pretty decked out to the nines. I've invested quite a bit of money to make sure that my CRM was locked in, because that's my book of business. And so the habit that I would say I have is to really monitor, track, and utilize my CRM, and to make sure that makes my day easier. And one thing that helped me a ton, and I'm sure you've heard it a million times, is time blocking, but realistic time blocking. So in the beginning of your real estate career, you have a lot more free time than you do as you're producing. But what I often train new agents to do when they join is to put 3 blocks of time in their calendar: the admin block, prospecting block, and marketing block. And so when we receive tasks, we can separate them into those 3 arenas. And you can do this, your Google Calendar, for example. You can put those time blocks in there. And then as you get emails, you can, if you have Gmail, you can open up Gmail and click add to tasks, and you can move that email to one of those. I created task lists that are admin, prospecting, and marketing. So I know exactly when I hit my admin time what to focus on, because I have it in my task list. So do the time blocking early on in your career, because everyone talks about time management, and I think I hate the term. I don't manage time. I never can. It's not. I don't create it. How the hell could I manage it? Sorry, I don't know if I can say that. But
Yeah, you're good.
time protection. Time protection. You're in charge of time protection, because what the world would do in this career more than any is rob your time, whether you had a plan for that or not. So look at it as time protection. I will protect that at 1 hour of admin block with everything that I have, because if I don't, I get less time with my family. I will protect my 1 hour of marketing time, because if I don't, the world will take it from me, and I'll get less time with my family. So you can't manage time. You can manage yourself in time, but when you get into your time blocking, I would say look at it as protecting it. You're putting a barrier between you and everything else for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. And then over time, when you get busier in the world, those time blocks will still be there, and you can teach others to time protect. So I would say use your CRM, understand your CRM, and then build time blocks that you're going to protect.
I love that lens on time protection, right? Because everything in life is an opportunity cost. And I think sometimes we can be sluggish about things that have to get done, right? Maybe
Yeah.
we don't enjoy prospecting, right? Like maybe there's one aspect of these things that you have to do, marketing, whatever, that you don't enjoy very much. But if you can kind of like give yourself, a kick in the butt and be like, well, if I don't do it, I don't get to watch sports tonight with
Yeah.
my family, or I have less time playing with my kids, whatever is truly important to you, that's the opportunity cost. And I love that lens of time protection.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the problem is, like, if you knew you were earning $150 every time you did your admin time, you'd probably do it more. It'd probably become almost religious to you, because you knew that was the time during the day where you'd earn $150. But if you peel it back and you run the numbers, if you want to make $400,000 divided by 48 weeks and divide that by 8 hours a day. I don't know who actually works 8 hours a day. We usually hit 10 or 12, right? Divided by the hours that you work and ask yourself, how much is that admin block really worth? And if is what I'm about to do worth $150? Would I pay somebody else $150 to do what's distracting me from doing prospecting because I don't want to do it? Or should I do my own prospecting for $150 an hour? So that's helped me a ton too.
Yeah, that's great. Scott, I'm curious, AI is like a big part of our cultural conversation right now.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you're seeing it used in real estate, how you're taking advantage of it, and how it's affecting real estate and your business as a whole.
Love it. Love this topic. I do. So AI is a bread and butter of mine. I speak nationally about it. I coach. I put on workshops. I spoke at, if anybody went to the Inman Connect conference in Las Vegas this year, I spoke about AI there. So when AI came about, like everybody else, I was intrigued by it. And then I just kind of sprinted with it and realized how much it could do for real estate agents. And so now what I hate about what I'm hearing is it's becoming just a term. Everything's got AI, right? Like you can't get a new software without, wait, it's got AI now, which we're really saying it's just some algorithm. But what for real estate agents, because I do a lot of coaching. I coach about a dozen agents nationwide. It doesn't matter what brokerage, across all brokerages. And it's how to help them use AI in their business to scale their business. I think AI should be looked at as the most cost-effective assistant you could ever have. Couple things that I hear if you're a real estate agent using AI and you're struggling with it. A lot of times I'll hear that agents don't like the output of AI. It doesn't sound like them. And what I would challenge them to do is a couple things. So go grab some of your top content out there in your social media platforms that have produced the highest, and that sounds like you, right? Or some emails that you've written, or and copy that content. Go into AI and ask it to analyze this content and give you a tone for yourself, basically. So, for example, for this podcast here, and you post to YouTube, you've got quite a few videos with very successful leaders in the industry, which is fantastic. I think you're using your voice and your skills for something super cool. So, what I think people could do is more podcasts like this, and then what you could do, video, right? Video has been huge. You can take that video content and throw it in a platform like Opus Clips or anything that transcribes, and you can grab those transcriptions and you can go into AI, because you're not going to get more authentic me than me talking, right? And so you can grab, I do it all the time. I'll go and grab 4 or 5 of my video pieces of content in which I'm talking, go in, extract those transcriptions, go into AI and say, analyze these transcriptions and write me a very detailed, in-depth document about my tone. Tell me about me. And sounds selfish, doesn't it? But I'll take that tone and that becomes how I'll go and open a new chat and I'll say, I want you to write content based on this tone. So then when I go and have scripts written or I have emails written, it sounds a whole lot more like me. And now you can even go as far as within ChatGPT. If you open it up, there's the little button where you can talk to it. I don't know if it's got the little microphone looking thing, and you can have a conversation. I challenge you to pop that open and just talk about who you are, what you do, or and a little bit about yourself, and then have it role play with you. Ask it, if you want to get better at for sale by owners. Instead of finding the perfect scripts that you can print out and feel so motivated about, and then you get behind the phone and people can hear you crumpling paper on the other side of the phone, and then you fumble 2 sentences and you abruptly hang up because you just blew it, right? It might just be me. Role play, use AI as that assistant that you've never had, not just transactionally, and ask it to build content calendars for you. Ask it to build personas for the first-time home buyer or the VA home buyer or the seller who's going through an estate scenario, so that you can better understand the people that you're going to work with, and that's what I train agents to do, is to use AI in a way that makes their lives easier, their businesses easier, and scale in a way that's authentic to them. That I think that the market may be missing personally. So yeah.
Oh, that was such a wealth of knowledge. I mean, I think a lot of us, when we think of AI, we think of like it writing papers for high school
Hmm.
kids, right? And you're like, okay, well, I can use it to help me write emails. But what you just described was such like 5 or 6 layers deeper,
Hmm.
and I wouldn't have even thought of that. And I love it. I could see how people in other industries, can do similar things that are more customized to whatever they're doing.
Hmm.
But I think AI is great. I know, I'm a performing artist as well. I know a lot of performing artists are worried. I'm not worried. I think, we've talked a lot about human connection, in our talk
Yeah.
today, and I don't think there's anything that will ever replace that. So I'm, as an artist, not worried.
Yeah.
Um, and so now I'm over here like, okay, how can we make this work for us? Especially
Hmm.
because it's out there. I know that there are some of these programs have costs, some don't.
Yeah.
And so take advantage of what's free to you,
Hmm.
while you have it.
Oh yeah. One of the workshops I normally do is going over the AI tools that are specific to real estate agents and how they use them. Everything from Chat PDF for transaction coordination to keywords everywhere, which is an extension you can add to your Chat GPT to find those perfect prompts to ask those questions. And so, if there's anybody that's interested in learning a little bit more about that, feel free. I'm sure in this check out the YouTube. I'm sure my contact information or connection will be within the description. But yeah, I'd love to talk even deeper about AI and its use in the real estate industry for sure.
Wow. Well, Scott, thank you for that. Are there any real estate myths that you'd like to debunk?
Oh man, that's a good one. Are there any real estate myths that I'd like to debunk? That you need to be some sort of like sales guru to be in the top 10%. I think it's really interesting to me when when you work with top producers and you have conversations with them, how solution focused they are, how real they are. There's like I think that one of the biggest myths is when people think of negotiation, they think of scenes in movies where someone slams their fist down on the table and says, my client's not doing, hangs up the phone. Those aren't the agents that produce the highest. It's the ones that lead with the mindset of what's the problem and how do we solve it. That usually get more done. And what's really cool is being a top producer and having those conversations. That I prefer to work with top producers because it's just a more streamlined conversation. We've all done this 200 times over, and it's just a calm, simple conversation. And so um, I think I think I think to be a top producer, I think to be successful in any industry. When I came into this industry, I wanted to know what the top 10% did, and I found out that just like most other industries, the top 10% was really skilled in their craft. But that couldn't be it. That couldn't be the one thing that they had. What did the top 3% have that the other 7% did not? That that took me a little while. But I do think I figured it out. I think if you want to be in the top 3% in any industry, you need to do one thing and one thing better than everybody else. I think you need to translate the best. And I say that because when you take a look at the industries in which people require the most trust, uh, law, finance, and real estate, and health, um, people want trust more from the professionals they work with in those industries than I would say in any other. The hard thing about trust is it's intangible. Like I can't give you a bottle of it, I can't fill your car with it, and it doesn't pay my bills. But what people want is that level of trust, and so the easiest way to get there is to translate, to take the complex. If you were to interview 5 attorneys, and I hope nobody ever has to watching this, that'd be terrifying. Um, and 4 of them were to tell you they know what to do and next steps in legal jargon, and you'd walk out of that room of each one of them and you'd say to yourself, wow, that person really knows what they're talking about, but I have no idea what they just said. And the fifth took the time to not just explain to you what needs to be done, explained it in a way that made sense, to translate the complexities of the law in a way that made sense to you, so you'd walk out of it and you'd simply feel that you trusted that person more. Real estate's no different. Your number one job is to translate the complexity of real estate in a way that makes sense, not just to some, but to all. And so then you ask yourself the question, how do I do that? How do I take something complex and translate it in a way that makes sense to everybody? First, you got to ask yourself, what is something all people go through? And for me, it's relationships. So when I go to translate a real estate journey, a buyer, a seller, I do it in the sense of relationships, because all people understand relationships, the good ones and the bad ones, and every relationship you had in between. And then I break it down like that. Hiring a realtor is like hiring a matchmaker. The pre-approval is a lot like getting dolled up before a first date, right? It's a snapshot in time. You got to make sure you look the right way when you walk through the right door. Showings, speed dating. You get to go on a bunch of 15-minute dates with houses, and the good news is you can date 5 of them on the same day, and none of them get mad at you. And then to take it to that next level, someone's got to propose. It's a relationship. And to propose, you got to have 3 things: terms, a vow or conditions, if you will, and an engagement ring or an earnest deposit. And these are my buyer's presentations. This is legitimately how I break down the buyer's journey. And I'll get some chuckles here and there, but what's hilarious is during the journey, they'll say to me, my buyers will say to me, "Oh, this is the engagement ring part." Yep, this is the engagement ring part. This is the earnest deposit part. And I know I can sleep better at night knowing that they're going to go to their cousin and say, no, it's like an engagement ring. Go talk to Scott. He knows what he's talking about. Ask yourself, and maybe go back to AI and say, how do I take the complexities of a real estate transaction on a buyer side and a seller side, and how do I create an analogy that people can understand? And challenge yourself to take that analogy and teach it to your 8-year-old. If you can do it, you can teach it to anybody. And I think if you find an effective way to translate the complexities of real estate, less people are afraid, and more people will work with you. So I think the biggest myth is you need to be the smartest. You really don't. You need to break it down the best. And you need to be some bigwig in a light office to be successful. You just need to be a decent person focused on solutions. So I know that's a long-winded answer to your question, but most of my answers are.
I loved it. I love the analogy because it's endearing, right? And I think the other thing that's really clever about it is the real estate transaction time can be very stressful and can feel very daunting. Most people have a very fond memory of proposing, of falling in love, of dating. Yeah. And so I think it really hits, the heart center of it.
I've never thought about that, but I think you just uncovered something. I think you're right, because it's interesting when I'm in the rooms, and it's often with couples, like young couples, and I see them kind of like light up, and I've never really thought about that, but I think I'm gonna add a layer to my response. I've been asked that question a few times, but I'm now gonna add a layer to my response. Is make sure that it's an analogy that people can connect with positively emotionally. Because if I took it in the sense of breakups, I don't think I would do as many transactions. So
no, probably not.
Use an analogy that everybody loves. Don't use fond memories, cooking, marriage, hopefully, but use something that people can understand. So that's a very, very profound point. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's something fun. Baking a cake, baking cookies with grandma. Yeah, things like that we can have an emotional connection to, I think are powerful. And not only did they understand it in the moment, they remembered it when that time came. And sometimes the engagement ring is months, maybe years later.
Yeah. Very, 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 very true. The significance too, right? Like when you do get engaged, you learn more about people. And like for contingencies, what I'll do is I'll say, okay, let's say I'm working with a couple, I'll say, okay, and I'll usually look at him, and I'll say, okay, if she turns to you and says, hey, I rolled the toothpaste from the bottom. I noticed you rolled the toothpaste from the top. I really need you to cut it out. What she's giving you is a contingency, my friend. If you don't stop rolling that toothpaste from the top, this ain't going to work. So if you're a smart man, you're going to stop rolling the toothpaste. And I get a chuckle, but people understand, like, okay, there's some give and take in these contingencies. It's not just me, but I need to be a little bit flexible. Approaching everything about the real estate journey in a way that makes sense. And if you can't think of anything offhand, feel free to R&D what I just gave you, or go to AI. If you're a performing artist, for example, can you go to AI and ask AI to break down the real estate transaction in relationship to a dance, a movie? What does that look like? So that when you're speaking about it, you can feel passionate about it as well as they understand it. So, yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Scott, I'm wondering if you or your team are facing any challenges in the current real estate market, and if so, how you're working to overcome them.
Ooh, yes. When is there not challenges in the real estate market? When when interest rates were 3%, the challenge was responding to the 27 offers that you got, and the challenge was not like going to sleep at night with your buyers paying $30,000 over a listing price to get shot down, and trying to wake up the next day and say, yeah, let's do that again, right? Like there's always challenges. So
Mm-hmm.
in this market, I'll address the elephant in the room for this year was exclusive buyers agencies. Now that the exclusive buyers agency in all states is required, agents have a fear of, oh no, now I got to get committed, and I got to ask the question. So one of the challenges now is understanding the depths of that connection, that agreement, and having a way to streamline that. And if you weren't doing the way to overcome that challenge, the fear of buyer agency, is having a buyer's guidance session. I don't say consultation because like you go to the doctors for consultations and they're scary. A buyer's guidance session. And in that buyer's guidance session, you cover, maybe your analogy around comparing the real estate journey to a classic film or a relationship. And then in that, you break down the buyer's agency agreement and letting them know like, hey, in order for me to step out and do the work that we're talking about here, we got to get, we got to get engaged ourselves. And given the relationship, I want to take you seriously. I want to work hard for you. And if you're ready to do that, I'd like to propose to you. Something that can lower the guards, but don't risk transparency. I'll tell you, it's one thing that is irritating me. It's a challenge that you're gonna have to face when working with buyers. Is a lot of buyers are sending the exclusive agency like it's a disclosure. A lot of agents are like they're just, hey, sign this along with the wire fraud. That's not the same thing. Don't treat it like it's the same thing. You just had that person commit to 3% commission, and you had them sign the agency. That's crazy. Respect the value of it and have the consultation. I have daughters. I would never allow my daughters to meet someone that is showing first. So the sheer fact that agents have been okay with doing that for years without having a buyer's consultation, without getting an exclusive agency, is terrifying to me, because I've been doing buyers guidance sessions for 4 years now. I don't work with people that don't show up to a buyer's guidance session, because those are the same people that don't deliver the earnest deposit and bail at the inspections and don't show up to closing. So if you're an agent out there that is facing a challenge around the buyer's agency, how to navigate it, have that conversation, of course, open disclaimer, seek your broker. Number 2, develop a really strong buyer's guidance session. And after you establish your expertise, then get to the buyer's exclusive and have that conversation. So yeah, that's what I'm hearing a lot from buyer's agents is, well, now I got to make them sign something. They're not going to work with me. Well, they probably weren't going to work with you in the first place if they're afraid to sign something. That's all we do. Yeah, that's a challenge, and that's one way I think that agents could overcome it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Scott, we are coming to a close on 2024, so
Yeah.
I'm curious how you are approaching goal setting for the new year for yourself and with your team.
Ooh, good question. I just held a goal planning workshop yesterday for about 8 to 10 agents. One thing in this industry that I wish we did differently was, and I get it. I get we do business planning around the number of transactions and the average sales price. That is always it has to be in the formula. But one mistake I think agents make is, in order to scale their business, their first thought is more units. I remember my first my first full year in real estate where I took off, 36 units in 1 year by myself. And at the end of the year, like I had this award and that award, and I was looking in the mirror and I turned to my wife and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. If this is what it takes. But I look back at my track record and I had worked with 33 different clients on 36 transactions. And I was like, oh, okay, can I do that better? And so I went to my broker, and my broker said, okay, well, do 36 again. And I was like, Kevin, I don't know if you heard me. I don't know if I can do that again. No. 36 transactions with less people. It was not connecting. What do you mean? Well, if you did a 50-50 split between listing and buyers, that's 18 people and 36 transactions. If you had to work with 18 people, not 33 people next year, wouldn't that make your life easier? And I'm like, well, dang. So don't think you need to scale like everybody else this year. Challenge yourself to ask yourself how many families you want to work with, how many lives you want to change. And if the answer is 25 lives this year, what price point do the houses need to be in order to make what you need to make to help 25 people? You can do 50 transactions with 25 people. You can get 25 investors and do 300 transactions. Don't think you need to do more to be more to sell more houses to be more successful. You're going to run yourself into the ground. The other half of that is using AI in your business to handle your light work. To whenever I start a new transaction, I will open up ChatGPT and I'll just talk to it and I'll explain, hey, this doing a transaction, the price is this, earnest deposits this, da 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 da, and that becomes my transaction coordinator. And then when I get to a point where my clients are scared during the transaction, I'll go into that AI and say, hey, I think my clients are afraid of this and this and this. Help me understand, and how can I convey this to them? And then so use AI as your assistant, your sounding board, and don't be afraid to have it automate or reach out to me if you need help with AI development in general in your business. So I think number one is more units doesn't mean more happiness. Changing more lives usually does. And then utilizing AI in your business to handle more of that monotony so you can spend more time with the people you care about.
Oh, Scott, this conversation has been just what I needed today, honestly.
Good.
It's been such a pleasure talking to you. Would you like to tell everyone how they can reach out to you, how they can work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram. The handle is Scott B, the Realtor. Feel free. You can even email me. Yet again, I coach agents. I don't care what brokerage you're at. I don't care what you're doing. I just want you to be happy. My email is scott@youronecoach.com. And then, of course, you can just Google Scott Bergmann, Realty One Group, and you should be able to find me. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I think it's super cool. Behind the scenes, I think the quantity of content that you put out is a lot of people can't do it. So I think what you're doing is super selfless. You're connecting with leaders in the industry, giving them a voice, giving them a platform. And I know at times it may feel exhausting, but understand that those people go home that night and tell their families about being able to spend some time with you and how cool it was, and their kids and families get to watch that video and all that. So I think what you're doing is brilliant, and you should be super proud of yourself for that.
Oh, thank you, Scott. Thank you so much. And we will put all your links in the show notes so people can find you with just a click. Scott, like I said, it was wonderful. Thank you for listening to The Closing Table, brought to you by WindowStill. I'm Kat Cooler. Please be sure you're following our podcast on Apple or Spotify, and if you're part of our YouTube audience, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're enjoying our podcast, please feel free to leave us a comment or review. It helps us find more amazing listeners like you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.